Hi everyone, we're here at the Buraq Center by LADIESFUND for day 2 of the boot camp. Aren't you guys excited?
Yes.
We are absolutely thrilled to have these amazing incubatees of the LADIESFUND Baqai Incubator and Boot Camp. They are all so dynamic and talented and are going through the process of the most intense training and upgrade that you're going to see. And today, our session for day 2 begins with the amazing Dr. Huma Baqai. For those of you who somehow have not heard of this Wonder Woman, she was not only at one point Dean of IBA and now Dean of Light, but she's really spends a lot of time at the World Economic Forum and other places, shaping the way the world sees many of the issues. And today she's talking about a topic that is so interesting and not often enough spoken about. She's talking about how to handle conflicts within teams. Now, many of the entrepreneurs in the LADIESFUND network are at very different stages. Some are still one person, some have hired consultants, and some actually have teams. And those teams range in scale. But what happens is, she's going to talk not just about the culture within the team itself, but also with things like cargars, vendors, manufacturers, the whole concept of handling those conflicts. And she can do it better than anyone else. So we're incredibly lucky to have the amazing Dr. Huma Baqai. Please give her a loud round of applause. Thank you. Fantastic. Right. Floor is yours.
I'm always impressed with the kind of bold, daring initiatives Tara comes with, and how she is able to engage so many people. I find her enthusiasm very infectious and also very encouraging. And I think we need people like her to actually bring the affirmative action so desperately needed for women in this country, and I think even beyond. Even countries that talk about empowerment have issues of class ceiling, have issues of pay ceiling, and for women it is always a bit difficult to get there. So much of her is taken for granted. So coming back to my topic, I was asked to talk about conflict, but I'd like this to be interactive and we'll have conversations while we go through it. So perhaps one of the first things that I'd like you to respond to is that, is conflict good or is conflict bad? What is it?
Sometimes it's good.
Sometimes it's good.
Yeah, I agree.
Sometimes it is bad. So what is the consensus? Is conflict good or bad, or it's neither?
No, if it's healthy.
So what is the definition of a healthy conflict?
Where there is not, where they will not come up with the negativity for the other person.
So is there an option? Do we have an option to be without conflict?
Yes. But
Do you have an option of to be without conflict?
I feel that if there is no conflict, there won't be any growth.
So conflict is the engine of human growth.
Yeah.
You agree? So if you don't have conflict, do not have dissent, you do not have difference of opinion, then you will not ever have creative ways of doing things, right? So essentially, conflict within a certain parameter is perhaps good. But if then conflict is good, what is bad about conflict?
The unsolved.
The unresolved conflicts, okay? One way of looking at it. All of you, I understand, are aware of what is fasting, and you have seen people during Ramzan on the streets. So what do you see? What happens when 4 o'clock everybody is rushing home? What is the pattern of behavior on the street?
People are very impatient.
People are impatient. People are angry. And all of them are in a spiritual condition, so to say. Yes?
When they're needed to be patient.
They need to be patient, they need to be tolerant, they need to be accommodating. And usually, round the year, on the same streets, they are quite okay. So what happens is that the conflict behavior changes. Essentially, conflict is neither bad nor good. it is your conflict behavior that determines the direction of the conflict. If conflict remains unresolved, they are allowed to fester, they are allowed to grow, they change, and they also hold you back. But if your conflict behavior is such that you can turn it into an engine of human growth, you completely change the construct and paradigm of the team. And then we are going to talk about startups, right? Startups are new. They have raw, active energy. Everybody's enthusiastic, everybody wants to get there, everybody's in a rush, there are no role divisions, everybody's doing everything, yes? And there is probably a person who's in power, but there are no real hierarchies. There's nobody who's a boss. So that makes consensus building and aiming to get there more difficult because everybody has their own idea as to how to get there. Therefore, there are certain prerequisites when we talk about startup team conflicts. First, foremost is a complete consensus on the vision. Even if you have a complete, so if you've come together, most probably willingly, you have a consensus over the vision. So where does the conflict arise? The conflict arises on how to get there. And everybody can have a different direction or different way of getting there. The best way is that have you determined a red line construct in your team about how are you going to reach that consensus and what is that which is not on and what is on. And then at the end of the day, even if you have a team of 3 people, the buck has to stop somewhere. So the final decision has to be taken by someone. The biggest reason why conflicts happen is, in most cases, it's finance. Because everybody is territorial about the finance, everybody is conscious about the finance, and the finance are limited, then you're also conscious that one wrong decision cannot be allowed because it can completely change the trajectory of whatever that you're trying to do. So what do you do there? Again, setting ground rules. Deciding, okay, there's this much risk taking which we will allow, but beyond that, it's the rule of the thumb, risk taking is not going to happen. So essentially, it is you determine within the team as to what is your conflict behavior. And also the ability to separate the person from the problem. You see, we so conveniently identify the problem and the conflict with the personality. So teams that have mastered the art of tackling the issue and separating the personality from the problem are able to move forward far more easily. And third, most easy rules. And these are quite simple. I think resolving issues is a fairly simple way of doing things. So a very simple way of, sort of moving forward and taking things forward is to know where this person is coming from. Everybody is going to report at 9 o'clock tomorrow because we need to give in more hours. And there are 2 people who are sitting there, who's going to drop my child to school? Or how will I make it by 9? So it's not the 9 that's the problem, it's where the person is coming from. So if you're smart about it, you will be able to see that where is this person coming from. And so essentially, the third dimension to it is looking at the root cause. Why is this conflict arising? And then of course the most common, something you've so commonly heard about, and that is conflict of interest. You see, somebody just can't let you do this because it is his personal interest that is going to get compromised. You're getting a lot of limelight. Originally, when they started this project, they thought that you are the worker, I am the limelight seeker, or I'll get all the limelight. All of a sudden, the tables are turning and the conflict will arise. The best way of doing things is role assignment. You should categorically be very clear about who is doing what and also share the limelight. If you hog on limelight, if you hog on finances, if you hog on doing things, then probably you're not looking at the root cause of the conflict. So coming back to what I said, conflict is good. It is essentially your conflict behavior that determines the direction that the conflict is going to take. And then creating a conflict culture. You see, every organization has a conflict culture. Some organizations or startups, if I sort of focus around here, do you have a conflict culture of what I call camping? So the minute a conflict arises, there camps. 3 people get on one side, 2 people get on the other side. This is negative. You're losing out on objectivity. So it's all about being cognitive. What is our, and not ever losing sight of your goals. And on that, I'm going to share a video with you. It's a very simple video. It's called Carrot Crazy. Do you have that? And then we're just going to discuss this video and realize that how conflicts actually destroy progress, and when that happens, how others benefit from it. Because one aspect of conflict is also conflict audience. If now I was to get into a conflict with perhaps Sarvat sitting here or Tara sitting here, all of you become conflict audience. And then you give a verdict. Even if you're my best friend or Tara's best friend, when you step out of here, say all said and done, I think Huma was wrong. Right? So be very conscious of conflict audience. And also, once we look at the video, I'm going to talk to you about personalities. How you need to understand that some personalities are just very difficult to work with. And then we bring in what I call the 80-20 rule. So hold on to your chairs, watch this video, we're going to discuss this video, and then we're going to talk about red and blue personalities, and we are also going to I'm going to talk about how we handle them. So guys, the video. you enjoyed the video? Yes, quickly, lessons. Very quickly. What's happening in the video?
When two people are conflicting with one another, the third party takes the advantage.
Also, when you get so completely entangled in the conflict that you lose out on your objective,
Vision you have.
your vision, your client. And also how energy is invested in taking the conflict forward rather than taking the vision forward, taking the mission forward. Remember guys, they are working in a field, right? The field does not just have one rabbit. So the ability to move away from the conflict, to realize it's not worth your time and energy, picking up your battles, and also knowing when you can compete and when you cannot compete. The ability to realize that is critically important, and especially for startups. The whole concept, you know what are startups? Startups are all about blue water. Red waters are concentrated. So it's all about blue waters and eventually the cost of conflict and the ability to constantly do a cost-benefit analysis. People who are on the top of the game are pragmatic. They know how to do very active footwork, and they most importantly know when to walk away, when it is not worth it. And there is no 100% winning in the world. There is always the 80-20 rule. And how we get so focused on the 20% negativity of any situation that we lose out on the 80% that is available to all of us. The rabbit was a small target. There were many more available. There was no reason to get into this. He did not anticipate the power of the opponent. There were so many obvious things which could have allowed this to turn into a win-win. It's okay, you do it here, I'll go elsewhere. And there's so much more that we can do with the same energy. You needed one carrot for the rabbit, and you spent so much. And carrot is just symbolic of how we keep investing in conflict. So invest in winning. Invest in moving forward. Your energy is precious. Your decision to use it is even more critical. And let time decide. See, the desire to win now, the desire to get even now will drag you into situations you may regret later. And it is all about conflict behavior. You know, when I speak to my teams, I always tell them that when you get angry, walk out of my office and write the nastiest email you want to me. Just don't press the button. Don't press the send button. And perhaps the next day in the morning, when you see that again, you would not want to press the send button. So another important, critically important thing here is the ability to respond to situations. Most of us, 80% of us, are reactive. We react to the situations, we are in the heat of the things, and we do not allow ourselves the time to respond. So good conflict behavior is a learned behavior. It's an acquired skill. But when you master it, you are on the top of your game. You are on top of negotiations, your negotiations improve, your communication skills improve, and the list goes on. And then perhaps something that I really want to talk about is, and it's very general, it's not just to startups, but I tell you what, in small teams it's even more necessary to have a conscious effort to put these things in place, because large organizations or big teams have rules in place. And one of these is the ability to listen. Active listening and positive listening, to me, is 60% of communication. To us, communication is good talking. to me, communication is the ability to listen and pick up those nuggets of information that are critical to take your team forward. To be able to draw the introvert out to talk, because he or she may have something so important for your team which will get lost out in the noise that extroverts make. So the ability to identify the introvert in your team and also ensure that his or her point of view comes to the table. And then the whole culture, what kind of culture do you have? What is your listening culture in your startup? What is the listening culture in your meetings? So you have a meeting between finance and advertising, or it's usually two people talking about it in startups, and you want a certain amount of money and the other person is saying that you should not. So is listening happening, or are you listening to attack? Because you have come to the meeting, you've come to the table with the preconceived notion that I am not giving in today. I will not submit this demand. And that is where your downfall begins. Because he may have the most brilliant idea you can imagine. And you are so set, and your entire focus is that I need to listen to him, to pick up something, to attack him. So when you listen to attack, you lose out on content. And that is where the downward slope, so to say, starts. So I think these are little things, and I'll be very happy to take questions also. If you have a question, if you want to narrate something that has happened in your life, which is about this. Because when I talk about react and not respond, I also have a very interesting story to tell, and I call it the hot buttons. Do we have a slide on hot buttons somewhere in the presentation that I've given you, if you could put it up? So, we all have our hot buttons. But we should also realize that have we given our remote control in somebody else's hand? So the minute they press that button, you dance. You act in a certain way. So hot buttons, behaviors that anger us and can cause us to react destructively. What was happening in the carrot craze? The response, the reaction was destructive. They are at the heart of many conflicts and can add emotional fuel to the fire. So your response time should be when your emotional fuel is down. When your emotional fuel is up there, you will add more fire to the conflict. Next, please. So this is what I called knowing your hot buttons. What was the subject discussed? Who pushed your buttons? Why did you feel manipulated? What will I do next time? And how will I respond to that better? And people have so many stories to tell when I put this slide up. Does anybody else have a story to tell here? This is really going to make this interaction very interesting. I'll start off with my story. So maybe that will give you the courage to come up with your story. So when I started doing television, I was very young, and I was lucky enough to be given a signature show immediately. So I had a signature show on TV. It went on PTV World, and because of that, I used to frequently travel to Islamabad. So on one of my trips, I met some very senior people who first come in and said, we saw you on TV. And this is a time when there was not a lot of TV channels. Just PTV and Indus, I think, just 2 channels. So they came up to me and they were very nice. And they said, wow, I wasn't even a doctor then. Said, Huma, you're doing these shows? And I said, yeah. I'm so excited and happy that I'm doing TV shows, and I was happy that I had a signature show so early in my career. And they said, wo shakal achhi hoti hai to shows mein le jate na. Now that was my hot button. I was like, where did I go wrong? So I come back and I speak to my producer at PTV. She was a very senior person, and I thank her to date for how she handled my emotions. And I told her that I'm walking out of the show. I'm not doing this. I'm just going to walk out because I teach at a university. I want to do my doctorate degree, and I don't want to be known for just a pretty face. I want to be known for who I am. I want to be known for my foreign policy expertise, and I want to be known for my international relations expertise, and so on and so forth. And she said, yes, you're very right, and it's your choice. So the immediate response was, she didn't say don't do it. She said, it's your choice. So giving the other person the power to make a decision gives them then the ability to also think about it. Push them in that thinking zone. So when people come to you with the conflict, push them into that thinking zone. Just said, yes, you're right, it's your choice, and you can do it, but I want to tell you something. And I want to tell you is, okay, this is a foreign policy show, and we are, via satellite, it is going into some 15 countries. Everybody doesn't get a chance to do it. And if it was just a pretty face, we would have asked an actress to do it, or a model to do it. We engaged you. You know, it was like, all my emotions went down. And then I have not looked back. I've been doing media for 25 years now, on both sides of the table. And on that day, I was ready to walk out. So don't let people push your red button. Don't react to a situation. Respond to a situation. Go into your thinking zone. See if somebody is manipulating you and pushing you towards a decision you would never take if you subtract that person from the equation. So give yourself time to respond, and this will automatically change your conflict behavior. And that's extremely critical. And I'm going to show you another video, but there's just one more thing that I want to bring out here. Unless one of you want to share a story with me. I'm sure all of you have something to share. You too, I'm sure. Please come here.
Hi everyone, this is Margaret. So a couple of years ago when I got into this profession, which is like coaching, and I've been extremely passionate about mental health, human behavior. So finally, when I got my certification, I graduated. And the funny part is that people who were the closest to me manipulated me. But they were like, okay, are you sure you're going to do this? Mental health is just like, it's not important. It's more about physical. Mental health, as I see today, is mental abuse is equally bad as any other abuse, right? So I stuck to my ground, but of course, when I could see some people who meant a lot to me, because they did not move on from, I would say, a mentality to focus towards mental health. So they, unfortunately, I would not blame them, but it's something that we learn as society, right? Because it is a stigma. So it's something that they wanted to kind of implement on me. So it wasn't very encouraging. It did push a lot of buttons, right? But what did help me, what I can say very proudly today is that I like to take inspiration from people who walk their talk. What is the credibility of a person who is giving you an advice, right? It took me many years, of course, like I agree with you completely, and I love what you said, because it does also make you double think that, are we doing the right thing? Are they right? But of course, into self-reflection, into learning, again, you know, having patience. And what also worked for me is that not putting my ego at stake, not having a bad ego, which would take me away from my vision today, which I have, to take this initiative globally. So yes, there were lots of hot buttons in my journey, but today I respectfully see if I am getting advised or if there is a critique, I'd like to see their credibility. I'd like to see if they walk the talk. Thank you so much.
Out and share a story, and some of us cannot, because we've been taught to internalize vulnerability. We've all been taught not to tell other people that we are weak, without realizing that when you put vulnerability on the table, you win friends and you allow people to see where you are coming from. I am passionate about helping handicapped children or handicapped people because I brought up a handicapped daughter. You see, when I put that on the table, and it's true by the way, so when you put your vulnerability on the table, you showcase your humane side. When you showcase your humane side, you win friends. When you have the strength to share your weaknesses, there are a lot of people out there who are struggling with weaknesses, who are struggling alone. When this one person has the courage to come out and share his or her vulnerability, even if people don't speak up, they connect. And one of the most successful people in businesses and everywhere are those who, what they say, resonates with other people, who can connect with you.
Open the gates to empathy.
It opens the gates to empathy. And you know, empathy is not about, I'm feeling sorry for you. Empathy is, I'm sitting next to you. So the whole idea of sharing your problems, telling people why you feel so strongly about certain things and where you're coming from, opening up, having channels of communication makes things so much simpler. Coming back to our topic, conflict. I've been teaching conflict for 20 years now. And one of the biggest problems that there are there that do not allow conflicts to get resolved or allow us to come to a win-win matrix is because people do not communicate. People are just not communicating. And when they're communicating with barriers. They're hiding 60 to 80% of themselves and they're only bringing 20%. Because they think that if they expose their vulnerability, they will be seen as weak. When you expose your vulnerability, you are very strong. You've come to terms with your vulnerability to be able to share it. You are absolutely in your comfort zone. And you are at peace with the world when you're at peace with yourself. So every single morning, get up and say, am I at peace with myself? Am I happy with who I am? And that is critically important. Because otherwise, you can never win those battles outside. And last thing, and I'm going to open another video for you, which is again a very interesting video. You see, it's fun to win, isn't it? Right? Winning is like amazing. But when you always win, you also lose out on a lot of people. So the people who attain the ability to create win-win rather than just win are success stories. Every single business, every single startup that takes off is a win-win. It's not just a win. A win could be 3 months of profits. But a win-win is that everybody who gets connected with you thinks that I have gained something out of it. Anybody who's mastered the equation of win-win gets there. Because you will have people engaging with you, people coming to you, people coming a part of your startup, your setup, your business, when they think there's value for what they're doing with you, whether it's spending time or it's spending money. So creating value for others, create value for yourself. It's a very simple rule. When you're able to create value for the society, when you're able to create value for others, your personal value just multiplies at a point which is unbelievable. So to be able to be there when you create win-wins. And by the way, if every time somebody sits with you and loses, people don't want to engage with you. It's as simple as that. We're going to see another very cute video, and then I'll open the session for Q&A. And that's all from today from my side. Always a way out of the situation. And more importantly, don't discount the power of the less powerful in your team. Nobody is less powerful, nobody is more powerful. Everybody has their own role, importance, value to the team. The minute you realize that, then you are on top of your game and you have a powerful team. Every single member of your team is very, very critical and very, very powerful. The minute you get that, you will ace the game. This is all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed the session. I'll be very happy to answer questions now. Thank you. So let's put the video away. Let's do some talking, where we can actually sort of, take lessons out of this situation. If you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them.
Our organizations have a different department, like separate department for conflict management?
You see, a larger organization would have grievance alleviation mechanisms. There are grievance committees. HR has a component where you're going to go and say that this is happening. But I also know that even large companies have cases landing up in the ombudsman department and so on and so forth. So essentially, in startups and small teams, it is good to set rules. For example, a simple rule of being respectful. That's a very, very simple rule. You can't be unrespectful or disrespectful towards anyone. It doesn't take a lot. But the critical issues that need to be handled in a startup are two. One is role division. Because when you have a small team, everybody's doing everything. You see? So you are also the CEO, you're also the HR, you're also everything, And when the organization starts to grow and you are told that this is your domain and this is your domain, conflict arises. You feel disenfranchised.
So the ability to talk to your people that now we've become big, this is, so role definition. Turf wars होती हैं, roles जब define नहीं होते. और सबसे मुश्किल जो काम है, फिर what is my job? If you're able to tell people categorically and clearly, this is what is expected of you, this is your job description, corporates have it, small people don't, and then conflict arises. And critically important, finance. So if you have an endowment fund or if you have certain money which is your security, no matter hell breaks loose, then you're not touching it. Because this is our survival, this is our life jacket. So those are certain ground rules. If you establish those ground rules and don't overstep them yourself, because somebody just said about walking your talk, that's critically important. If you're walking your talk, you're not overstepping the rules that you've assigned yourself, and you're allowing everybody to participate in the vision and in the way forward conversations, chances are you will succeed. And by the way, failure is beautiful. It's an opportunity. It's something we can learn from, and it allows us to succeed again. And if you succeed alone, it's no fun. But together, you succeed twice, thrice, 4 times. So I firmly believe in succeeding together. Thank you. Yeah.
So we're talking today about conflict.
Yes.
But theoretically, everything you say is brilliant. But in reality, emotions come to play.
Yes.
So at the end of that video, we saw this easy solution of that simple hop or jump. But in reality, although it might even be staring you at the face or they're two intelligent people, emotions can be the block. So do you have any advice on that?
Well, I just did actually an exercise here, which was called hot buttons. So the ability to know your hot buttons and the ability to see and realize that you've pressed somebody else's hot button and moving away from that zone to give the other person the time to recover. And also having the magnanimity not to push somebody's red buttons. You see, we as people unfortunately enjoy pushing other people's red buttons. So this is going to hurt him. This is going to make him feel small. So let's say this. So like I said in the beginning, you know, conflict resolutions are done in the societies. It's a societal thing. It's a community thing.
Yeah.
How do you behave when the other person is vulnerable? Are you supportive or are you vindictive? Oh, I'm so glad this happened to him. Or, okay, I've been through this and now he's going through this. Am I going to help? So it's a societal construct. So yes, emotions will come into play, and it is your ability to remove yourself from that emotive zone to your thinking zone, where you move from the reactive zone to the responsive zone. So rule number 1, do not react to situations. Respond to situation, and then you can't even imagine the kind of dividends. Even if you're talking about winning, if you're able to train yourself and your brain to respond to situations and not react, you will emerge as a winner. Because like I said, in every conflict, there are 2 people who are in a conflicting situation and there are conflict audience. And the last verdict is of the conflict audience as to who was right and who was wrong. Even your best of friends may not say it to your face, but when they step out, they say, Huma was wrong and she was right.
In fact, we look for...
Yes, even if you're in a position of power, and you're overstepping your power or using it power, people will step out and say he had or she had no right to do that. So people who are conscious of conflict audience and are conscious that now I'm in my emotive zone, I need to move into my thinking zone and then respond to a situation, is how you learn, relearn your conflict behavior. There's nothing wrong with conflict. It's the conflict behavior that is tricky. So our conflict behavior with India and China is totally different. China has taken more business from us than India can ever do. But we have a different conflict behavior. So President, and I'm an international relations person, I'm sorry for those examples. So President Xi and President Biden met, right? On the sidelines of the Asia Pacific. They had good talks, While he was coming down the stairs, President Biden went off the script, and you say, but President Xi is a dictator. And President Xi was then immediately, that's what the press will do. President Xi was immediately posed with that question. Biden just called you a dictator. Oh, China and US has so much potential to move forward. He completely chose to ignore that question. Who do you look as a better diplomat, as a better statesman? I leave the decision to you.
Okay.
When you take it to Gaza,
To the?
Gaza, for example, what's happening in Israel.
Yes, okay. Now, again, Israel. I've written extensively on it, and I'm also talking about it. Israel used to play on something which is critically important, and that was called the economy of enemy. And gradually over the years, they had won Egypt over, they had done the Abraham Accords, they were going into conversations with the United States of America, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. So in some ways, the Palestinian resistance was dead, and its traditional backers or supporters were now sort of just moving on. I know what Hamas did is not to be appreciated, but it did put Israel in a very tight spot, because it stands exposed, its backers stand exposed, its excessive use of force is unacceptable, and it has lost out on many fronts. You know, this was a Washington Post article which said that, I don't know if you know the history of the Middle East, they had the 6-day war. And from the 6-day war, they say now Israel has a 7-front war. And I always say this, go back to this critical question. Is Israel safer today? After 50 years of whatever they've done to Gaza and to the West Bank, and how they also compartmentalized Gaza and West Bank. And as a result, what has happened? I'm so glad, Tara, you asked me this, because this is a fantastic example of conflict audience. Capitals are with Israel, governments are with Israel, street and people are with the Palestinians. Be it London, be it Berlin, be it Washington, be it Chicago, be it entire Europe. More protest on the street for the Palestinians in the Western world than in the Muslim world. And I think that's the conflict audience. That's conflict audience. Will they be able to, will things get corrected? Well, we don't live in a fair world. That's the unfortunate thing. So we have United Nations, which is a conflict resolution mechanism construct, and there are two biggest violators of UN resolution. One is Israel, the other is India. And not just Muslims or Christians, it's become a humanity issue. It's become a humanitarian issue. It is Jews. I've spoken to right-wing Jews who have categorically says that this is not what our religion says. This is not what Torah says. We are not standing behind what Israel is doing right now. So I think that is conflict audience. And that is verdict of history.
And how much conflict resolution takes place at all in front of an audience? Most conflicts, especially in a team or a startup. In fact, we're taught family, your family conflicts are within your family, your office conflicts are within your office. So 99% of situations, if I'm correct, are not with the conflict audience.
They're not with the conflict audience, and I think that's a very critical point, because if we take it to a micro level, to organization level, like this, I think organizations that thrive are organizations that have a culture of equity. Not just equality, equity. To have fair, if you are convinced that there'll be equity in the resolution of conflict, then those decisions are accepted. The reason why today United Nations is getting marginalized, because people see that there is oppression and aggression, and there is no solution which is rooted in justice. So in organizations, it is important to have a culture of equity. And more importantly, I'm telling you this from experience. I've been in leadership positions in organizations for half of my life now. It's listening also. Organizations that have a listening culture, a lot of things get resolved without involving committees and taking them to grievance mechanism entities. If you have a listening culture, if those people who are in top positions are objective and unbiased, and you have systems in place, then chances are that so there's always what I call conflict potential. There are certain situations that are high in conflict potential. So if you have an assessment of conflict potential and are able to predict conflict and then resolve it, the chances are that the conflicts will not rise to a point where they will bring the organization down. What we don't understand is that you can't avoid conflicts. They will keep coming back to you. So you can't push them under the carpet. You need to resolve them. And resolving is not 100% solution. Resolving is an acceptable solution. So today, two-state solution is acceptable to Palestine. But Israel is so drunk on it, the power that it has acquired over the years, that now two-state solution is not an option. They even want them out of perhaps from Gaza. They are onto the track of genocide so that they eliminate a nation which we all know is not possible.
How come it's not possible?
It's not possible because it will get revived. 10 years from now it will get revived. Because there's so many diaspora outside. You see, for example, the Khalistan, so India would want to end the Sikh resistance. There's Sikh diaspora outside. They are now consolidated in Canada. There's the Kashmiri diaspora outside. So you can't wish away nations and people.
Even if they can never have access to it again.
Look at, the Jews have a history themselves. You see, Holocaust. Hitler wanted to eliminate the race, right? So, and I love what Mark Twain once said. And it's so true. He said, history does not repeat itself. It rhymes itself. Guys, I need to go. Thank you so much for your time and attention. It's always nice to speak to a smaller group, because the interactions are so beautiful.
So we want to present you with
Thank
a
you so
special
much.
token of
Honored and
appreciation.
humbled.